As we studied yesterday, transforming suffering into the path, we should practice, we should find or narrow it down to a particular one or two that would be very beneficial to you. You should adapt some of them, one or two of them. For example, familiarize yourself with one particular one, such as generating bodhicitta, and you can practice that a lot in your life. And when you encounter a problem, you can right away generate bodhicitta. And there are people who really enjoy practicing or who are more accustomed to renunciation and so on. I think in such a way it would be very helpful whenever afflictions occur. Next one, it talks about with this, suffering and difficulties can become of help for our spiritual practice, but that alone is not enough. In fact, just becoming your spirit, just becoming a help is not enough. When you encounter grave difficulties such as the illness and death of family member and so on, you should not only face it and not only to turn it to become a favorable condition. Rather, we should gain a sense of real joy and enthusiasm inspired by a thorough appreciation for our achievement, and then reinforce this and make it stable and continuous. This is quite difficult, actually, because this kind of suffering, such as illness and so on, becoming a favorable condition is far not enough. And that's the first step. You should recognize suffering and transform it into the path of enlightenment. And then you should familiarize it and understand it. And then you should give rise of the attitude of enthusiasm and a continuous appreciation of suffering. And not just some very faint joy or faint appreciation. Rather, it should be a great enthusiasm, just like there are people who would have lots of enthusiasm for food, for salary and bonus and holidays. And when they heard that they're going to have all of those, right away they have the kind of great joyfulness in their heart, and then it is hard to express through just words. Also, it should be a continuous and stable happiness and joy, and not the kind of happiness that you have it today but not tomorrow. Rather, to develop a stable and continuity of happiness or of appreciation. Of course, it is quite difficult for us right now because we're talking about not only talking about it in theory, or talking about whenever there is some suffering that occurs to you, some problems that you have to face, not only that sometimes you don't feel happy about it, I think lots of people would lose their courage towards them. You would question, why me? And then right away, all your expression, your language, your everything started to fall apart. I think that's how mundane beings are like. Tokmei Zampo, for a period of time during their practice, he lost all the virtuous insights and all the virtuous thoughts and good insights. But then he got ill because of his illness, his virtuous thoughts and insights started to come back, and therefore he was really joyful and he started to practice more diligently again. I think to the wise ones, they would not only use all the obstacles as favorable conditions, they would be very enthusiastic and quite appreciative towards their difficulties. During Cultural Revolution, lots of great masters were imprisoned, and at that time they would remind each other that, well, now this is a time for us to practice transforming suffering into enlightenment. You should practice well. So they would encourage each other like that. In Qinghai province, at the time, there are great masters. During their public shaming, they would say that today the public shaming session is very helpful. I think this kind of obstacles and this kind of suffering is more supreme than the esoteric practice that is called distinguishing samsara from nirvana. So distinguishing samsara and nirvana is a kind of esoteric practice to increase one's practice insight. But during public shaming, which I've seen when I was young, in fact, it was very difficult. People would force some of those unreasonable faults on you, and they would blame you for things for no reason. It was quite difficult to endure and very humiliating. But to lots of genuine practitioners, this kind of public shaming is a better practice than the profound esoteric practice that is differentiating samsara from nirvana. Of course, without the preparation, it would be difficult. It's difficult to have appreciation for them. So at that time, I think you should practice so that eventually you'll have that. And so with each practice outlined above, say to yourself, this suffering has been of tremendous assistance. It will help me to achieve the many wonderful kinds of happiness and bliss which are experienced in the higher realms and in liberation from samsara, and which are extremely difficult to find. Over here we should generate the kind of thinking that this is such a rare opportunity, because with this kind of suffering, this kind of opportunity that is hard to endure for mundane beings, for non-practitioners, but for myself, the more the better. Not only I can gain the opportunity to be reborn in the virtuous realms and have the great opportunities to attain enlightenment and fruition, such as Pratika Buddha and even Bodhisattva and Buddhahood. I think this would become the great companion to attain happiness. Therefore, I should practice in such a way that maybe it looks tough tough. However difficult the suffering may be, it will always bring me the greatest joy and happiness. Therefore, we should like suffering. We should fall in love with suffering. So when people ask you who you fell in love with, you should say that I love suffering. We should have such kind of rebellious spirit. In fact, we should be happy about it. We should be very joyful about it. Bitter and yet sweet, like those Indian cakes made of sugar mixed with cardamom and pepper. What does that mean? I think over here the cardamom is also considered a herbal medicine. In Tibetan region, we also have this Tibetan cardamom. It has a spicy flavor. Just simply eat it. It's hard to enjoy it alone. And then there's the peppercorn. I think similar to the Sichuan pepper. Sometimes we would add some of those grounded pepper into our meal. There are people who like it and some people who don't. The taste of pepper is difficult to describe. It's a little bit spicy too. So if you directly eat pepper, it's very difficult to eat it alone. So let it be cardamom or pepper. To eat it alone is very difficult, especially for people who's not accustomed to it, who's not familiar with the taste. However, if you mixed it with sugar cane and mix it into a cake or biscuit, a biscuit-like cake, I think, in this way, then people can enjoy it more, because maybe the flavor is quite complex and have many different layers. So what's the function of it? The function of cardamom and pepper is to expel the excessive toxin, and it's very good for our gastro health. This is the kind of medicinal function of it. But to directly eat it, it would be very difficult. Therefore, we can mix it with some sugar, just like some Chinese traditional medicine is mixed with either sugar or salt. It would taste a little better. Sometimes I would think to myself, the taste of coffee is the same. If you just directly drink coffee, it's quite a bit bitter, especially the American coffee. But if you add a little bit sugar and cream, it tastes really good. In fact, this is also a kind of habit. For people without the habit of drinking coffee, they would think that why would anyone like coffee? The taste is really odd. It's not spicy or savory, and it's not sweet. But for people who are more used to it or even kind of addicted to it, they really enjoy it. They really enjoy such flavor. Therefore, the metaphor tells us in our life, there's so many different kinds of things could happen, such as happiness, sorrow, gathering and departing, all different kinds of tastes in life as well. And to take those different and to take them directly would be rather very difficult. Therefore, to practice is just like to mix sugar with the different flavors of life or different life events. And that is mixing practice with the different life events. Maybe at the beginning you are still not too used to it, but slowly the different kinds of flavors in life, different kinds of events in life that is mixed with practice becomes a very complex and very layered flavor. That is to say, a very layered experience, so that everything would be easy for you to accept it, and then eventually becomes more helpful to your body and mind.